Cinder Fall is a character who has hurt a lot of people in RWBY. Whether it be through using them for her own ends or just killing someone, she revels in causing pain. It's no surprise that there's a plethora of suitors in the show who want their shot at killing her. This video is going to highlight one specific character. That's right, you know him, you probably don't love him, Jaune Arc. Jaune has been one of my favorite characters these past few volumes of RWBY. He just feels so real, and not like some other characters who feel real because the plot kind of just makes them the relatable one. He comes off as genuine. I bet some of you have already started to angrily comment, "No, RWBY has to fight Cinder because if she doesn't it makes no sense. RWBY is the main character, you just want Jaune to steal the focus because you're a fanboy and hate women," and other wonderful things. All I ask is you at least sit through this video and hear me out. I feel like I have to start this video highlighting Jaune's journey and how scarily similar he is to Cinder. In a good way though. It'll make sense, I promise. Jaune starts the show as your ordinary kid in over his head, wanting to prove to everyone he's the man. He's the one who can save the day, the hero. This doesn't last though. In volume 2, with the help of Pyrrha, he learns to swallow his pride. He lets her help him grow as a fighter, and he gets better because of it. Then come volume 3, and it all falls apart. He loses his school, he loses his trust in Ozpin, and more importantly, he loses Pyrrha. You can roll your eyes all you want and make remarks about how it was just one kiss, but it's abundantly clear Pyrrha meant the world to Jaune, and disregarding that because you can't comprehend not everyone treats love and loss in a totally objective, rational way is disingenuous to both Jaune and Pyrrha. It doesn't matter how long they knew each other. What matters is what they meant to each other in the time they did. In volume 4, it's obvious the death of Pyrrha is still impacting Jaune. He trains every night to her videos, with some pretty powerful subtext that he hates himself for not being strong enough to save her. Not being strong enough to save anyone, really. He doesn't let it destroy him though. Throughout the volume, he can be seen helping his friends with their own trauma despite himself being in a dark place too. And it also continues to build on his growing distaste for Ozpin, getting angry at Crow when he learned more of the truth about the manner of Pyrrha's death. People like to say Jaune was ungrateful here, but how should he have reacted? He just learned more about how the most important person in the world to him died, and the person who told him is the right-hand man to the guy who facilitated it. A key theme I want you guys to take from this video is the fact that people are not always rational creatures. You don't always value things as, you did one good thing for me, therefore that negates all the bad news you ever tell me. Like, Crow told Jaune some of the worst news he could have here. Jaune was never going to just take that on the chin and let bygones be bygones. Of course he would get upset. Again, shouldn't hate him for not being rational and thankful here. He's human. In volume 5, you see him genuinely upset that he has yet to find his semblance. It surely doesn't help him feel less worthless. Those feelings all come to a head later on, when he comes face to face with the woman that caused all of this pain for him and his friends, Cinder. He asks first for why she did all of this. And what did she do in response? She insulted him. She didn't even have the decency to give a reason for why she caused all of this destruction. So, he loses it. He tries and fails to fight her. When on the verge of death, he tells her that his life isn't worth anything. Since she learned killing him wouldn't be painful enough, she goes ahead and hurts someone he cares about. This leads to Jaune eventually learning his semblance at least, but it's pretty messed up to realize that Jaune in volume 5 is borderline suicidal. In volume 6, Jaune finds a statue to Pyrrha and Argus. He vents his feelings to Pyrrha's mother and they part ways. Nora and Ren confront Jaune on what he said in Haven, and after a bit of conversation and heartfelt talk, Jaune finds newfound purpose in what he's doing. He's not in it just to kill Cinder or to find death or whatever. He truly wants to go and help his friends save the world, because that's what Pyrrha would do too. Something that's really important to highlight here is not just the progression of Jaune's story, but the deconstruction of him being the man. Jaune isn't the best fighter, nor is he the strongest dude alive who's fighting because he wants glory. He's a tactician whose semblance makes him the most clutch support fighter ever, and really for a long time he was just a sad, broken guy trying to find any sort of closure. That's not the male fantasy or your average shonen journey at all. So, what about all of this is similar to Cinder, with what little information we have on Cinder's past? We can infer a few things thanks to canon information that has been drip fed to us, whether it be from show or mobile games. In the mobile game Knight's Chronicle, We're told that Cinder is jealous of those with natural talent, and as evident in the show, she uses that as motivation to tear others down, and in turn, probably the reason she joined Salem, for a quick fix to get more power and be better than those formerly better than her. John, on the other hand, a weak fighter with no natural talent, was and is surrounded by those better than him constantly. He refuses to be held back because of it though, and works to improve despite it, taking no quick fix to become good. See his training in volume 2 and 4 on display. He's never jealous of others for being better than him, just upset that he isn't at their level. He doesn't tear others down, he uses them as motivation to improve himself. John is pretty much a Cinder without an ego, a Cinder who never had an inferiority complex, and a Cinder who doesn't go around enjoying torturing and killing others. John worked hard to get where he was, unlike Cinder, who goes around and steals her main source of power. Ironically, John is a better Cinder. Now that I've discussed the relation Cinder has to John, and why John has grown from who he was earlier on, I want to talk about what makes this fight different to their bout in Volume 5, and what makes it at the very least more interesting than Cinder vs. RWBY. In Volume 5, John fights Cinder out of rage. It's fueled by wanting revenge for what she did to his school in Pyrrha. It was an unhealthy obsession he bottled up, and it exploded in his face. After Volume 6, he comes to peace with the fact that Pyrrha made her own choice. So now it wouldn't be a fight for revenge. He's going to be much calmer when he next meets her, because he's worked through these problems he's carried in his heart and head. That's character growth. If you think he would just do the same suicidal attack despite Volume 6 being about him learning to accept who he is and what he means to other people, you aren't giving John enough credit. This fight would be an entirely different ballgame. John wouldn't go try and solo her because he knows he's not the fighter. In an ideal world, he comes up with a strategy and works together with his team to take her down. It's never going to be some badass sword duel 1v1. She's a maiden. It's going to be a team effort, perhaps focusing on John, but that's to be expected considering she's hurt him the most on a personal level on the good guy side. But what about RWBY? Let me be frank, RWBY vs. Cinder is perhaps the most boring matchup you can have in a post Volume 6 world. In Volume 6, RWBY learned how to master her silver eyes, or at the very least turn it on and off on command. Silver eyes are Cinder's Achilles heel, as in they one-shot Cinder. How is Cinder fighting RWBY in Volume 7, 8 or whatever interesting at all with this mindset? Cinder gets blasted with silver eyes and then we all clap for RWBY? There are no stakes at all with this fight. John, Nora, and Ren all fighting Cinder later on would be more interesting, as none of them have an insta-win button, unlike RWBY. But RWBY watched Pyrrha die. John didn't. And John, Nora, and Ren all witnessed Penny get ripped to shreds, something that RWBY didn't. Does that mean Penny's death suddenly affects Nora and Ren more than RWBY? No, so why should RWBY seeing Pyrrha die mean it affected her more than John? You don't need to see someone you care about die for it to hurt you. But Cinder wants to kill RWBY. Sorry honey, but you kind of lose your right to the fight you want when you become a murderer and villain. Nobody should care about what Cinder wants here. Villains don't get their fairy tale ending. Do you think Hazel's going to actually get to kill Ozpin over and over and over again because that's what he wants? No, of course you don't. Because that's not how things work. Besides, Cinder knows she can't beat RWBY. It's one of the main reasons she hired Neo in the first place. In my honest opinion, there is almost nothing appealing to Cinder vs. RWBY other than the fact that she's the main character. And hey, maybe that's enough for you, and that's fine. I just think when you really think about it, it's boring as all heck. My personal favorite person to kill Cinder would have to be Emerald. But hey, this video is long enough already, and it would take a lot more than this one for me to explain why. Point is, John fighting Cinder doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world. If you open your mind a bit, look at the journey John has went through, and understand that it wouldn't be a one-on-one. It honestly looks pretty good. It's not my favorite way for Cinder to die by any means, but it's personally a lot more interesting to me than RWBY just blasting her silver eyes and calling it a day. Tell me in the comments if you agree that John fighting Cinder would be a cool thing to see again, or if you still disagree and that John should never fight her. I'm excited to hear your thoughts. Hit that like button if you enjoyed. Be sure to share this video with your other RWBY friends and fan groups, and subscribe for more content. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk with you again soon.